Whether antimicrobials are used in livestock or humans, it is important that we do not replace good hygiene. What? Hygiene? Remember Napoleon? What was one of his favorite tools?
Cleanliness.
What?
Cleanliness.
Cleanliness. Imagine. Napoleon. It is important that we do not replace good hygiene in either context for animals or for people by excessive use of antimicrobials. Now, this is in Nepal. This is at a leprosarium. This man has a hole there in his chest, right here, and you can see right through and see his heart pulsating. It started with a mosquito bite. My most remarkable, this is a medical doctor who had read our book, Charcoal Remedies. My most remarkable success is with a patient in my mission work. I don't believe this man was Seventh-day Adventist. I think he was another mission worker from another denomination. Having developed from a simple small bug bite to a massive skin wound on his left chest with a penetrating opening through the ribs to where you could actually see his heart beating. I taught the staff how to spread activated charcoal on the wound and cover with wet gauze twice daily to absorb the bacteria and toxins. He had been on IV antibiotics and only worsening for about 3 months in the hospital before I taught them this. On my return 6 months later, the medical director of the hospital told me that he had rapidly cleared within 6 weeks. Drugs never cure disease. From this little book here. They only change its form and location. When drugs are introduced into the system for a time, they seem to have a beneficial effect. A change may take place, but the disease is not cured. What happens? It moves. Chase it out, chase it away. It'll pop up somewhere else. Only this time it pops up, it's a little bit more resistant. It's learned a few evasion tactics. The disease which the drug was given to cure may disappear, but only to reappear in a new form, such as skin diseases, ulcers, painful diseased joints, and sometimes in a more dangerous and deadly form. Nature keeps struggling. The patient suffers with different ailments until there is a sudden breaking down in her efforts and death follows. Here's a perfect example. Dr. Lisa Landermore-Lim, PhD in chemistry at Cambridge, back in 1994 in her book, wrote, "Today's pharmaceutical preparations, because of their harmful effects, may be labeled as poisons." So chemically, they are classified as toxins. And she went through hundreds of hospital records in England, and she looked at all these records, and she came up with the conclusion that they're toxic. And she concluded that by prescribing some of these things, antibiotics, vaccines, and other pharmaceuticals, what was happening, it was chasing the problem from one organ to the next. And they were settling down where? In the pancreas. And what were they destroying? Well, they were destroying the beta cells, and they ended up with diabetes. And so a parent, has a child, and she's worried, and the doctor's worried, and you got to get rid of this fever. It's only percolating around 103, 104, but let's get rid of this because fevers are dangerous. They're our enemy. And prescribe an antibiotic, and 3 days later, 3 weeks later, maybe even a year later, they have type 1. The cause of most disease is in the poisonous drugs physicians superstitiously give in order to effect a cure. Charles E. Page, MD, leading proponent of hygiene and sanitation. He must have been a disciple of Napoleon, I guess. Vaccines. The word breaks down to vacca. Anybody here know Latin?
No, I know Portuguese, vaca.
Yeah, where I live, there's lots of vacas. Vaca medicine. Well, it might be good for vacas, but it's really no good for us. And I'm not going to go into this. You can do your own research. And I really am. I'm really hoping that you folks will go home, do your own study, do your own research, because, I'm here, I parachute in for a few days, then I'm gone to the next whatever. Same way with Leanne. And doctor's got his work. who's responsible? You are the gatekeeper of whose health? Your own. Yes, they might be giving you 100% correct information, but whether or not, it's only when you do your own research and it becomes part of you that the real changes that will happen. Read the label. Here's just a short list. Here's one organization that has it in for vaccines. Aluminum, formaldehyde, benzethonium chloride. What? Glutaraldehyde, a disinfectant. Mercury, human DNA, MSG. I don't know if it's good in Chinese food or not, but it does have consequences. Somebody help me out with this one. 2-phenyl-xylithanol. Xyethanol. Whatever. Chimp. So here is AstraZeneca. First ingredient is chimp adenovirus. They scrape the inside of the mouth and they culture a product, and that becomes first ingredient for AstraZeneca. So again, you read the label, but the reading the label may not tell you at all. You're going to have to do some further research. And the Bible, our ultimate guide on good and bad, for me, I don't know about you all, but you might want to read it if you haven't read it. Thou shalt not eat any abominable things. Well, God, I have to eat lobster. It's with butter. Yeah. When I worked in the West Coast, this guy, tugboat operator, fell overboard. And they searched for him and searched for him, and they finally found him almost gone because he was being feasted on by those animals. Sin is a transgression of the law, God's law.
I wonder if he used butter.
Probably didn't need butter. Anyway, you know, we try and brush it off, but the reality is that these animals, these things that have been prohibited by God, is for whose good? Is there not something out there that we can substitute that we can add some herbs to that's going to taste very nice? Absolutely. Yeah, we had tomato soup of some version last night. It was very tasty. Know ye not that you are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you? If any man defile the temple of God, him shall God destroy, for the temple of God is holy, which temple you are. Now, I mentioned this story last night, but there's more people here today, so I'm going to rehearse for just bear with me for those of you who heard it last night, okay? My first introduction to health and preventive health and responsibility was from a real estate broker in the Everglades in California. I was hitchhiking. I ended up stranded in the middle of this long stretch of road in the middle of the Everglades. And the next morning I got up and I was reading the Bible. I had never prayed before. Well, I had, but I was not in that kind of space at that point. I was just reading the Bible. And but I'd been there, I was standing alone, and there was a car every hour or two. It's like where we live now. And so I finally got tired and said, I bowed my head and said, God, can you give me a ride in a car? And I looked up the highway, and here comes a car. And I said, a Cadillac. And I looked again, and I said, a pink Cadillac. And this pink Cadillac slowed down. I mean, I'm in the middle of the Everglades. I mean, the middle. And the car slowed down. Was it green or pink? Well, it doesn't matter. It stopped, an electric window, and I'm sitting, I'm absolutely mesmerized. I cannot believe what's happening. And I've got this monstrous backpack, and the guy looks at me and says, well, do you want to get in or not? And I scrambled, put my backpack in the back seat, climbed in the front seat, and who am I sitting next to? But Jack Frost. Now, if you ever heard that little rhyme, Jack Frost, you know, he jumped over the, nimble and quick, and he jumped over the candlestick. Have you ever heard that one? Yeah. This is not the same Jack Frost. I don't know if they're related, but he was humongous. He was huge. He occupied more than half of that front seat of that Cadillac. And he took a quick evaluation of the circumstances and realized that I was probably I was not taking good care of my health. And he proceeded to paraphrase this verse to me. He was a brand new Christian. He was a baby Christian. All 400, 500 pounds of him. He was just brand new. And his pastor one day, Pentecostal pastor, took him into the sanctuary and asked him point blank, "Jack, do you like worshiping in our church?" And Jack said, "It's heaven on earth. The fellowship, the singing, the enthusiasm, the worship, the word. Lord, I just love being here." And the pastor said to him, "Well, Jack, what if you saw smoke, tobacco smoke, just fulfilling right up to the top, everywhere? You could hardly see the stained glass windows, and you couldn't, the smell was in the pews. What would you think?" He said, I wouldn't like it, Pastor. That would spoil things." And then he said, "Well, Jack, what if you came in here one day and you saw great gobs of fat falling from the ceiling onto the padded pews and the velvet carpet, running down the stained glass?" I got your message, Pastor. Got your message. Now, Jack was not a baby. He didn't go down to Dairy Queen to medicate his wounded feelings. He was a Christian. And he recognized that this man truly loved him. And I mentioned that last night. I really believe that minister loved that man. And Jack loved that pastor for doing it. And I've mentioned last night, I've told this story to thousands upon thousands of people over the years. And I know that seed has germinated some places. And it's caused people to think about their health and their life and what they can get rid of in their life that will give them better health. And Jack said, everybody in the world can eat ice cream, but Jack Frost doesn't eat ice cream. Think about it. There is a terrible account to be rendered to God by men who have so little regard for human life as to treat the body with so ruthlessly in dealing out their drugs. But that's not the problem. It's not the problem. But I am not excusable if through ignorance I destroy God's building by taking into my stomach poisonous drugs under a variety of names I do not understand. It is my duty to refuse all such prescriptions. So the onus comes back to who? Me. It's my responsibility. I have to make those choices. I can get a second and third opinion. That's good. But ultimately, I have to make that decision. I cannot say, well, the pharmaceuticals are not charitable organizations, folks. They're in the business to make money. That's their business. That's their business model. So we don't expect that from them. And we shouldn't expect it from physicians. We put altogether too much emphasis on their knowledge. They cannot possibly keep up with all the knowledge that's out there today. They can't read all these lists on every drug that comes out. There are few drugs, if any, for which we know the basic mechanism of action. Now, this is the pharmacological basis of therapeutics by Goodman and Gilman. This is the textbook for medical students. There are few drugs, if any, for which we know the basic mechanism of action. Drug action is not drug effect. The effect results from the action of the drug. Are you following this? What we're seeing is not what we gave. This something is happening from the time we give it to them to where we see the effect. Something is happening, and we have no clue how you get from point A to point B. When you think of how fearfully and wonderfully are all the mechanisms that go in the body to do this bit of biochemistry here and so forth, it's absolutely amazing. And he recognized that the limitations that science has on being able to understand this. Would it not be wiser for all to educate themselves in the use of simple remedies than to venture to use drugs that are given a long name to hide their real qualities? Why need anyone be ignorant of God's remedies, hot water fomentations, and cold and hot compresses? Before you arrived, we actually demonstrated a cold compress on the throat. And we're going to do some more of that tomorrow afternoon. We're actually going to have people here, we're going to demonstrate, and we're going to ask individuals to come up and help us do some of these demonstrations if they have not done them before. Because really, I know the first time I was told to do some of these things, I had no experience. I didn't know where my kidneys were, let alone my liver. And they're asking me to put on a poultice. And I'm thinking, well, I think the kidneys are on the back someplace. And I felt like I had no knowledge, and my knowledge was dangerous. But I was convinced because of these healthcare professionals, doctors, pharmacists, pathologists, cardiologists, that they knew something I didn't, and I could trust them. And I trusted them. I'm so glad today that I trusted them. They instructed me so well 50 years ago that it's benefited me my whole life. And it's helped me as I've traveled to different countries to help others. Heating compresses. Do you even know what a heating compress is? You may have heard of it. Have you ever applied one? Now, if you've been in this church for a while, there is no excuse if you have not applied a heating compress. There is none. I'm sorry. Maybe it's brutal, but the truth is the truth. There are too many people who have, a tennis elbow, carpal tunnel, cold feet, or bronchitis, that you have not used a heating compress by now. It's because you're the same way I was. I'm a carpenter, a tradesman, and that's not my job to apply medicine. My job is to put things up. But let me see. What was Jesus' profession? What? Why need anyone be ignorant of God's remedies? We don't need to be. It is important to become familiar with the benefit of dieting. Okay, that's doctor nutrition. All should understand what to do for themselves. Everyone should have an intelligent knowledge of the house he lives in. All should understand what to do in case of sickness. Okay, take a break. I'd like everybody to stand up. Let's help these women. They need to stand up too. Can't we just help them to their feet and set them back down? Okay, you can't, but let's just hold you up, stand up for a minute, and then we're just going to ease you back into the chair. Is that okay?
Put your feet on the ground.
Feet on the ground. Stand up. Okay, just stand for a second. We got you. Take a deep breath through the nose. Okay. Take a deep breath through the nose. There you go. Okay, we're going to set you down again. Okay.
Step back.
Step back. There you go. One more. There you go. Here we go.
Sit.
Yeah.
Sit.
Lay down.
Just sit.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Okay, rock up on your toes like this. Stretch those Achilles tendons. Take a deep breath. Now, as you sit down, does anybody have a question so far? Go ahead and sit down. We're going to I'll take a few questions, and then we're going to get up and take a few more minutes break. It's already 11:30, and I'm not even halfway. Well, I'm almost done with the first half. Usually it's anyway. Does somebody have a question? You don't have any questions? Yes.
You mentioned on the screen about Vicks Vapor Rub.
Okay.
Was that supposed to be so harmful, Vicks Vapor Rub?
What's one of the primary ingredients of Vicks?
Like you put it on your...
Eucalyptus oil. So putting it on, what is happening when you put on Vicks Vapor Rub?
You can breathe better when you...
Okay. Some of these are what the principle is a counter irritant. And so a counter irritant works on the skin, and it's really actually increasing blood circulation. They're not saying that all those things were bad. They were just saying amongst these were the common patent medicines. And some of them were not bad. Vicks, I don't know about 666, but the Vicks was okay, and my mother used it on me. You could put it on my chest, or she put it on my nose, help me breathe. So it works as a counter irritant, but it also causes dilation of what? What's going to dilate when you...
Blood vessels.
Blood vessels, and usually there's a problem with breathing, maybe that's a cold associated with a cold, and so it goes to the lungs and it helps increase the air tubules will like open up and allow you to breathe easier. So nothing wrong with that one. Actually, probably a more natural remedy than what the other ones were. You saw aspirin, and it's the precursor of all the other ones that we have today. It was just showing that there was a growing dependence upon patent medicines that was happening back in the 1800s, and some of them were lethal. Strychnine, arsenic, and opiums, and so forth. Yes?
You quoted there about the Good Samaritan, where he used the oil and the wine.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think it means when it says wine?
Okay, the question was where we talked about the Good Samaritan in the Bible, where he finds this man wounded, and he used oil and wine. What was the reference to wine? Was it? I'm thinking your question might be leading. Was it fermented, or was it new grape wine? I'm not sure what it was. I know it was in his backpack. That's all I know, and that's all he had to use. And whether it had a little bit of, can you imagine have you lived in the Mideast? Grape juice is going to ferment. It's going to, and it's going to happen fairly easily, and still it has some medicinal properties to it. So you can be a purist all you want, but if you're he's applying it, yeah, topically, but he was carrying it for internal use. I don't think he was carrying it for necessarily topical. That was not on his agenda for the day, right? It was a surprise, but he was not caught without something that God's arm is not shortened just because you can't get to a pharmacy. There's something somewhere nearby that you can reach out. It's affordable and it's accessible, right? That you can use with a little bit of research. And today, I mean, there's I can see some medicine standing right here on a tree. So it's not, you could use Vicks, but we're going to collect some pine needles and showed you that you could have used pine needles as well. Does everybody want to take a little bit more of a break, or do you have some questions? Yes.
How do you feel about the CBD oils and such? It's not a psychoactive by any means, but the topical creams.
Okay, did you catch that? The question about CBDs?
And also capsaicin as well.
And what?
Capsaicin as well. If you're using like
Cayenne.
Cayenne.
Capsaicin is the cayenne.
For
on your skin.
And that's an irritant, but
Well, again, they're available.
they're available, yeah.
50 years ago, I didn't use them for that purpose, but it's the thing is, yeah, some of these things might be psychoactive, but they're there, and I think we need to be aware. Our tendency is to isolate the active ingredient, concentrate it, and then market it. And then we're taking it out. We're biochemists, and we're not chemists. We just read that here's a leading chemist that says we don't know the action. We know what the effect will be, but we don't know what is it disturbing on the way to give us the effect. So it might help us in this thing, but is it disturbing other things in our body? We're not that wise. They're not that wise. And so we can add to our faith knowledge. How can we apply these simple remedies? And I would not be adverse to using some hemp if I had to. They have medicinal properties. I would want to be a little bit more knowledgeable on how to apply them and be aware of what side effect there might be, because once you start isolating and concentrating the active ingredients, now you're dealing with a different animal, right? Was there another question?
I was just asking about that one, and also the capsaicin, like the peppers or whatever. For topical.
Right. Cayenne. The Canadian government did a study on cayenne for and they said it was an irritant. People were using it for different ailments, but this is years ago, 40 years ago, they had a study that showed that cayenne is a potent irritant for the stomach. So, but there are people who are convinced that cayenne, it works. And yes.
Are you familiar with cayenne for a heart attack?
Yeah,
And it will,
that's
for
sort.
the person that's in a heart attack, it will
Right.
open those vessels up and bring them out.
That's what I was referring to, and that's why the Canadian government did the study, because of all this positive publicity it was getting. You know, they have to punch our balloons sometimes. And so there are some cautions that would go with that, I guess. Yes? If that's all I'm on an incline.
We are.
Right? I don't want to fall off the cliff. Any other questions? Yes?
Yes. My mother is 83 years old, and she always has cold feet.
Ah,
There is winter, summer, fall, morning, afternoon, all the time. And you were talking about the cold feet. She's 83 years old.
we were in India, and we'd been invited to speak at a hospital for the doctor's staff and nursing staff. And before one program, we visited the dean and in his home, and he had his mother and his mother-in-law were staying with them in the home. And it was a humid climate, but it wasn't cold per se, but it wasn't warm either. So, and they had terrazzo floors. And I went in there, and we were visiting with the family, and they were telling me they're both somewhat similar ages, the mother and the mother-in-law. And one was clearly in better health than the other one. The other one had failing health. And I just was observing them and listening to them, and I just happened to glance at their feet, and one was barefooted on that cold terrazzo floor, and the other one not only had flip-flops on, she had socks on. And the difference, now I'm not going to tell you that just that alone, it was the reason. But what happens to your blood vessels on a cold terrazzo floor? And, you know, the Bible says the life is in the blood. And there's another saying Ellen White had that says, perfect health depends upon perfect what? Of what? The blood. So if there's poor circulation, then there's no blood. And what's in the blood? The life. You know, God breathed into man the breath of life, went to the lungs, went to the blood, went to the feet, toes, and back to the heart. And it gave off the impurities, and the whole process repeats itself over and over. We've been programmed that way until we try and reprogram ourselves. So when we reprogram ourselves, after a while your feet don't tell you that they're cold anymore. They've just shut down. I'm tired of trying to tell this person his feet are cold. And have at it, you know. And but I just observed these two older women, and I thought that's a part of her problem. And I was hoping that Carrie would make it here, and that's another example. Trying to encourage this man to wear pants, and if he's not worn pants for years and years because of his condition. But I know once he starts wearing pants, his healing is going to progress even faster. So your question for your mother is, I don't know whether she wears socks or not. All the time. My mother had hot feet. You know, is the exact opposite. So, but again, whether it's the feet or the hands, trying to keep their circulation as even as possible is one thing. It's just not unusual that women do not clothe their feet as well as men do. So trying to make sure that they have warm feet. And they can't tell if they put their hands on their feet and that they'll say, oh, I'm fine. So it has to have somebody that has warm hands, not mine right now because they're cold. But somebody who has warm hands, put it on their feet and see, you know, if it's not the feet, how about the back, the calf? Is it cold? Or the inside of the thigh? If those areas are cold, something is impeding the circulation. And it's one thing. It's one thing in trying to sort of, and she's old. She's getting older. She's not old, she's getting older. And as we get older, I'm 74 and I'm realizing some of these body parts don't work the same way they used to. On Monday, I was doing flooring in our barn. We're renovating a barn. So getting up off that floor at 74, my knees just don't work the same way. And I'm not gonna, I'm just gonna, I want to go into older age thinking, okay, you are getting older. It's a consequence of sin, and that's gonna, if Jesus doesn't come soon, I'm gonna do what? I'm gonna perish, right? I'm gonna lay down in my dusty bed. And I'm gonna try and maintain my health as best as I can under the circumstances. So I am gonna get older, and I'm gonna come to a place of being more feeble. But even then, can my mind be good? My feet may not work, but I saw you reading a spiritual book on angels the other day, and I thought, that's keeping the mind what? Filled with good food, right? Maybe I cannot walk, but I can still put good food up here. Inevitably, what happened to every one of the people that Jesus healed? What happened to every one of them? Every single one of them died. Every one. Did they go to the grave with a testimony? Absolutely. Jesus saves. That was their testimony. If we neglect to do that which is within the reach of nearly every family and ask the Lord to relieve pain when we are too lazy to make use of these remedies within our power, it's presumption. Why? When you understand physiology in its truest sense, your drug bills will become much smaller. And finally, you will cease to deal out drugs at all. For 50 years, after I read this book, I think I was on a remote island. I got necrotizing fasciitis on this leg, and I was ready to die. I made peace with God, because I'm not going to make it through to the morning. And God saw fit to restore me, but I saw people around me dying with this disease. It's pretty amazing. I was using my pliers here to pull dead flesh out of my wounds, down to the bone. And I did not know what to do. I had no idea what to do. And it wasn't until after the fever left me that night, the next morning, I put charcoal on this thing. And this is before I read the book, or wrote the book. And so it's one of my stories. It's one of the, it's like asking, what do I put on a sore throat for my son in the middle of the night? Ask God, for emphasis. And He will talk to you. He will listen to that still small voice, and most likely it's too inconvenient. I'm not ready to do this. I'm not qualified. The more you do it, the more you'll hear that little voice. It's just like, oh yeah, right. And after a while, I'm not saying it's not faith, but you've done it enough times that yeah, I know it will work for this one. The physician who depends upon drug medication in his practice shows that he does not understand the delicate machinery of the human organism. Now this is so important, folks. He is introducing into the system a seed crop that will, what? What's never? Never is never. Lose its destroying properties throughout the entire lifetime. Now, this woman had a 3rd grade formal education. One of her favorite topics was health. And one of her things that she zeroed in on was drugs.